everyone. My name is Manisha Mishra. I'm a teacher and life and happiness coach on a mission to help and inspire you on your self-development journey. So let's welcome to the Manisha Mishra show, where we bring experts from various industries to share their knowledge and wisdom and help you elevate your life standards. So let's welcome our today's guest, Mr. Dhruv Raj Sharma. He's the CEO and founder of Logophilia, a platform that is helping and revolutionizing the world of vocabulary. Sir helps students and educators to enhance, polish, and understand vocabulary through etymology. So, thank you so much, sir, for being here on my platform today. And your presence really means a lot to us. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine, Manisha. Thank you for having me.
So thank you so much, sir, for being so gracious to accept my invitation and being here. And I'm very sure that audiences are going to learn a lot from today's episode. So let's
Definitely.
jump into the question answer section. So, sir, first of all, I would love from you to hear something more about you. I have given a brief intro about you. So I think
Mhm.
audiences are, more interested to learn more about you and your journey.
Yeah, which part would you want to know? Present or past or future?
Just the present. I mean, what are the things you are doing in Logophilia? Just a brief.
Super. So my name is Dhruv Raj Sharma, and I think the year was 2006, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody asked me to start taking up a few lessons because in vocabulary for a bunch of students because their teacher was absent.
Okay.
I had just completed my first master's degree at that point of time. I said, why not? And I think that's the best why not that I've ever said in my life. That was a long time ago. So December 2006. This
Hmm.
is almost
May.
June 2024.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I haven't stopped teaching. It's addictive. I love teaching the vocabulary. I
Hmm.
teach vocabulary not because I'm a language nerd. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
language nerd. I'm an
Mm-hmm.
etymology nerd. But
Hmm.
I love teaching vocabulary because I sincerely believe that um, it's the most important subject that can be taught.
Hmm.
And I would love to answer questions about why I think that. But I believe that it is one of the greatest ironies of not just present day education, but even education in my father's time, in my grandfather's time, in his father's time, was
Mm-hmm.
the fact that schools have always been very judgmental about whether or not they like a student, whether or not they think a student is capable, about they use terms like aptitude, they use very moralistic signs of talking, saying you're not a very grateful child. Why don't you
Hmm.
like to focus on studying?
Mm-hmm.
The irony here that I'm trying to point out is that schools don't teach vocabulary. Knowledge is written in books, books are written in words. If you don't know vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
how do you expect somebody to
Yeah,
like
true.
what they read? So that's the
Mm-hmm.
most important subject that's missing in education, in my understanding. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm out to solve over the past. It's now been 14 years since I incorporated Logophilia
Hmm.
as an organization. Over the
Hmm.
past 14 years, Logophilia is now in 72 countries. And we
Wow.
have 67 schools, 22 universities. And
Great.
we're marching ahead. We want to reach 100 countries before we can come up with a white paper that can be sent out to governments across these 100 countries saying, please make vocabulary a subject. There are not just two bright children in the classroom. Every single person in the classroom deserves to have the tools to study before the judgment can be made whether they are bright or they're not so bright.
Hmm. Perfect. So it's a complete new perspective towards the vocabulary, what I can sum up with the insights that you've shared.
Manisha, it's
Very
actually very
nice.
interesting that this is not a new perspective. I wish it was mine.
Okay.
So some
Okay.
of my greatest heroes are dead people. There are people that the forefathers of etymology. So I
Mm-hmm.
studied a lot of books that were written in the 18th century, for example.
Okay.
And a lot of these books had titles that ended with etymology for school, class notes in
Okay.
etymology for high school students. There are lots of
Mm-hmm.
people who wanted who could
Mm-hmm.
see the same pattern that I saw, which
Mm-hmm.
was that this is something that is meant for school. There are even people that are alive, by the way. I have at least two books of contemporary people who
Mm-hmm.
exist. I think both are in America. One has
Mm-hmm.
been written by three different scholars. All of
Mm-hmm.
them are aiming this at school children.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
just that there are very few of us that talk about it.
Hmm. Few of the change makers in the world. Wow, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, sir, for sharing these beautiful insights. Now, I would love to ask you another question, which is, can you elaborate how logophilia's approach to teaching vocabulary through etymology differs from traditional methods?
Okay. So, number one, I wish that there had been traditional methods of teaching vocabulary. I don't think vocabulary is really taught. So, um, what you're looking at behind me is my bookshelf.
Yeah, yeah.
And this, of course, is the color-coded version. When it was very neat and pristine in its all raw shape,
Hmm.
I used to have a whole set of Cambridge books. These were about 18 volumes, that thin, really, really thin.
Mm-hmm.
So 100 pages of a book maybe. This was the
Hmm.
Cambridge vocabulary course. And
Hmm.
it was so boring, despite the fact that I had bought it, I never read a word. It was aimed at complete trash. I don't know
Okay.
what people think of school students' abilities. My
Mm-hmm.
children learn 67,000 words in 14 days.
Oh my God,
A highly learned Western English native speaker has a vocabulary size of about 73,000. My kids can do that in 14 days. Those people do that in their lifetime. How does that happen? It
hmm.
definitely doesn't happen by reading those idiotic Cambridge books, by the way.
Okay.
So it happens through never really learning one word at a time.
Okay.
We use a Sanskrit technique, which is called Sandhi and Vichhed. In
Yeah.
English, we call this passing. So passing comes from the word part, so breaking things
Okay.
up into parts. So when
Mm-hmm.
we teach a child to part a word up, the art of passing,
Hmm.
they are they really don't need to learn every single word. I'll give you an example. So if I break up the simplistic word democracy into demo and cracy,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as the child gets to know the crazy means to rule, you don't need to tell the child that the same thing applies to words like plutocracy or aristocracy or theocracy or bureaucracy. They
Hmm.
start seeing the term crazy. The term crazy becomes a thing in their lives.
Hmm.
And as
Okay.
soon as something becomes a thing in your life, there's a phenomenon called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, which starts to apply, which means
Okay.
that they start to notice that one thing wherever they can see it.
Okay. Okay.
So
Got
it's a
it.
waste of time trying to master every single word. That
Hmm.
should not be done if you want to learn vocabulary. If you're a word enthusiast, go ahead and do whatever you want to do for pleasure, you can do. But if you want to learn vocabulary, you have to learn the art of where to break up the word.
Okay.
So
Okay.
similarly, if I break up the word famous, for example, very, very simple word famous,
Yeah.
I break it up into fame and OUS. Now, OUS is a French suffix which means of that type. As soon as
Okay.
I get to know that OUS means of that type, I've now unlocked a few hundred words because laborious,
Yeah. Yeah. True.
adventurous, studious
Wow.
also comes from here. So a person who is of the studying type is studious, a person who's a laboring type is laborious. It becomes common sense, and that is the
Yeah.
mission that I have. I want to reduce education to common sense so that the
Hmm.
elitism that shrouds education, where children who come from homes that give them a lot of exposure,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to do better than children who come from deprived homes that can't give them so much exposure. I think vocabulary becomes the de-elitifier in that. It creates a level playing field so anyone can study if you just know how to understand the words.
Wow, brilliant. I loved it. That when you said the art of, breaking the words, that's amazing. And famous fame plus OUS. Oh my God, that's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So even the word
Okay.
logophilia is logo plus philia. So logo is word and philia is love for. So literally
Okay.
love for words. A person who loves words is, as my
Hmm.
t-shirt says, a logophile.
Okay. And it's
Yeah.
logo plus file. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how we write it.
That's brilliant. That's very nice. I'm learning a lot. A lot of people are going to at least start with this, like famous, fame plus OUS. I loved it. So now I would love
Sure.
to jump into another question, sir, which is,
Please.
I mean, you also operate some this personality development programs, and I've heard a lot about those programs. So how do your this public speaking programs or personality development programs integrate with etymology based curriculum to enhance participants communication skills?
Yeah. So I started my foray into public speaking in the year 2002 when it came to public speaking instruction. I
Okay.
started developing a taste for public speaking when I was in class 4, but
Oh.
it was when I was in second year college that I started small little society called the Public Speaking Society, which today has now become the public speaking program. So it's been uh, 22 years since we did that.
Wow.
So, yeah, we make a very important distinction, Manisha, which is that there are two kinds of people who speak.
Mm-hmm.
There are you and I,
Mm-hmm.
which is everybody.
Yeah.
And then there are those people who speak professionally for a living, which
Yeah.
includes doctors and debaters and lawyers and
Yeah.
anyone who goes to. So notice how I said doctors. So doctor actually comes from the Latin doctor, which means teacher, the original word. That's why
Mm-hmm.
PhD, after a PhD, you're called a doctor because now you can profess, you can public speak your profession. So there are lots of people who speak for a living.
Hmm.
Those are called performance speakers. These are
Okay.
people who would do debates. These are people who would do elocutions. These are people who would do MUNs. These are people who would do turncoats or just a minute or speech making.
Yeah.
These are event-based speakers, and events carry trophies. Schools love the glitter of trophies. And therefore, what they do is that in the name of public speaking, schools conduct a lot of performance speaking events in which they
Hmm.
typically encourage a bunch of children. You
Hmm.
are going to be speaking for the motion, you're going to be speaking against the motion, you're the best elocutionist in the classroom, you're going to be doing this and that, maximum 4 or 5 in a batch.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Very true.
Everybody else who's kind of shy seems to believe that they are not really good enough and that their
Hmm.
job is to sit in the audience and clap. That's unfair. That's not
Hmm.
true.
Hmm.
So I always like to give the analogy of A.R. Rahman and Michael Jackson.
Hmm.
For the sake of our Western audiences who hadn't heard of A.R. Rahman, you can even compare what Beethoven and Michael Jackson. So
Hmm.
between anyone who is musically very gifted,
Hmm.
but not so outgoing, Beethoven wouldn't really put on a very scintillating stage performance if you compare him with Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson put up a much, much more entertaining performance, but
Yeah.
Beethoven would know a lot more music. Mozart would know
Hmm.
a lot more music. A.R.
Hmm.
Rahman knows a lot more music, but these guys are
Hmm.
shy. That does
Yeah.
not mean that they're not musicians. That just means
Hmm.
that as performance musicians, there are better examples than these guys.
Okay.
So
Got it.
similarly, in a classroom of 20 kids, if there are
Hmm.
two performance speakers,
Hmm.
there also needs to be said that there are 18 public speakers.
Hmm.
People
Okay.
who will need to talk for the rest of their lives. When you and I are talking, there is no audience listening to us right now.
Yeah.
So this is not a performance.
Hmm.
But we are public speaking. We are persuading each other that our thoughts are worthy of being heard.
Yeah.
So when you go to any platform and ask for your proposal to go through, when you go up to your rickshawala and you say, I need a discount, when you go to your dad and you say, I want to take the evening off with my friends, you're doing what? You're asking them to take you seriously. In
Hmm.
psychology, this is called persuasion. There is an
Okay.
entire branch of psychology which is called techniques of persuasion, which comes
Hmm.
under the generic realm of counseling psychology. So, a counseling psychologist would typically persuade sense
Mm-hmm.
into their clients, saying, this is what you think, and please allow me to express this opinion and see how you can understand. Techniques of persuasion.
Okay.
Persuasion is one of the most common things that you and I do, Manisha. And
Hmm.
that is something that must be recognized in school as public speaking, because performance speakers are very rare. How many people do you actually know who actually professionally debate for the rest of their lives?
Hmm.
Maybe just litigation lawyers,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
just argumentative journalists.
Hmm.
That does not mean that the other people don't need to deserve to learn the art of public speaking. So that's what I realized a long time ago. And therefore, I
Hmm.
run public speaking programs for people who want to persuade people. My programs in public speaking are very heavy in psychology. So we do a lot of guided introspection. We go on to delineate the argument that language has two components: comprehension, which means
Hmm.
understanding language, and expression, which means using language. For
Okay.
comprehension, you need vocabulary.
Hmm.
For expression, you
Hmm.
need to have a non-linguistic thing. You
Okay.
need to have something which all the great public speakers in the world have been known to have, which is called
Hmm.
confidence. Now,
Okay.
confidence is a Latin word that breaks up into con plus fid plus ens. Fid is faith, and con is with. A person who has faith in themselves has
Hmm.
confidence.
Okay.
In order to have faith in yourself, you must be self-aware. You must know
True.
what your weaknesses are. You must
Very
know
true.
what where your standing is in the world. You must know who's better than you and who's worse than you. You must know what your fears are. You must know what your strengths are. You must know how far you've fallen from the tree. How much do you resemble your parents? There is a lot that you
Hmm.
need to know. You must know the basis of your choices, the basis of your biases in life. This kind of awareness gives confidence, because then you don't need somebody to tell you all of this. Once you know, you know. And
Yeah.
when you know, you can accept yourself. And
True.
when you accept yourself, you'll be able to figure out that, there's a politician in India called Lalu Prasad Yadav. He's not really
Yeah.
known to speak the king's English or the queen's English. His
Hmm.
English is not very good, but his public speaking is fantastic.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I really miss him. Like,
Absolutely. So
it's
why
nice.
is his public speaking fantastic? His public speaking is fantastic because he accepts himself for who he is.
Yeah.
And that
True.
therein lies the key to public speaking. I'm not talking about performance speaking. That needs practice. That's a whole different art.
Hmm. Hmm.
Public
Hmm.
speaking is something that we don't do 4 times a year. We do public speaking 20 times a day. And it's something so
Okay.
common that you can't miss
Hmm.
it. So you need to know who you are. You need to know how other people are. You
Hmm.
need to know how to persuade someone. You need
Yeah.
to know how to defend yourself. You need to know how to be aggressive when it's required. And you need
Hmm.
to understand where confidence comes from. And therefore, I run a public speaking program that does exactly those 5 things. It's in 5 levels. In level
Hmm.
one, we do who you are. So we do the practice of disinhibition. We remove
Okay.
your jejak, we remove your inhibitions in life.
Okay.
Number two, we teach you the art of thinking. We say that if you can't think well, you won't really be able
Hmm.
to speak well. I mean, even if you speak, nobody's going to listen because you don't really think well. So
Okay.
we teach you the art of objective thinking. In number three, we teach the art of persuasion, which in formal public
Hmm.
speaking terms is called rhetoric. It's a very old practice. We teach 55 techniques of rhetoric. In level
Okay.
four, we teach people the art of self-defense in public speaking and offense if it is required. And in
Okay.
level five, we break up the whole concept of confidence into multiple portions, and we tell you what the secret of true confidence is, so that you can forge ahead without feeling ashamed of yourself or embarrassed about anything.
Wow, that's great. That's huge.
Thank you.
So, that that particular thing that you said, the performance speakers and the public speakers, I
Correct.
really love the differentiation between both of them, and because public speaking is something which just supposed to be adorned by some people who are speaking on stage. But you very well said that public speaking is something which we do 20 times a day, and that is really nice. And I really
Yeah.
love the concept of art of persuasion. That is really nice, inculcating confidence. Amazing work that you are doing. Thank you so
Thank you,
much for
Manisha. And let me
sharing.
give a small little example right there.
Yeah.
So, in public speaking too, for example, we do an activity called negatively stereotyped language, or NSL.
Okay.
So it's a very small example. I'm
Hmm.
talking about when you when you said that we do public speaking 20 times a day.
Yeah.
This is something that a lot of people complain about, that, oh, my parents don't take me seriously, or my husband doesn't take me seriously, or my child doesn't take me seriously. There are
Yeah.
lots of people who don't even know, because schools don't really teach all of this. There are people who don't even know small things,
Hmm.
like the words we use and how we use them has so much of an impact. So, for example, you
Okay.
might have noticed that there are psychologists who insist that you don't say mentally handicapped anymore, you say differently abled.
Abled. Yeah. True.
You say special children. You don't even say mentally challenged or
Yeah.
retarded anymore. You say
Yeah.
special children, right? So
True.
what are we doing? We're changing the language,
Hmm.
which means, why are we doing that? Because
Hmm.
certain concepts become very negatively loaded.
Okay.
So we
Hmm.
don't use that language, because when we use that language, we might actually trigger somebody to
Hmm.
start getting reminded of negative cues instead, and not like what we're saying, despite the fact that we're actually saying something really nice. So
Okay.
similarly, it's
Hmm.
not just about being physically handicapped or mentally handicapped that needs to be replaced. It's a lot more
Hmm.
things. Religion,
Hmm.
for example, is a word that's very, very negatively loaded, because it's been responsible for wars. So there are people who, nobody's really going to come and tell you that don't say religion. Instead of religion, we
Hmm.
say belief, or we say faith, or we say my following.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Similarly, a lot of
Hmm.
I see a lot of people who very casually use words like hate. I hate doing this. Now,
Hmm.
whenever I used to say as a teenager, whenever I used to say I hate, I used to see that my parents would get very alarmed, because their generation did not talk like that. They did not use such strong language.
Yeah. True.
So instead of saying hate, if you say I'm not very fond of,
Hmm.
or as the
Hmm.
Americans say, I'm not a fan of,
Yeah. Yeah.
small little
Hmm.
things. I'm giving you the tiniest possible lesson from public speaking, saying this is what the
Hmm.
common man talks about.
Yeah.
These are things that we do every single day. But what we really end up doing is we end up misrepresenting ourselves, because we
Hmm.
don't even know that these things matter. People don't
Hmm.
know that tone matters. People don't know that volume matters. People don't know that gesticulation matters. I've seen a lot of schools that very carelessly say
Hmm.
that you should not use your hands.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes, you may want to hold back on using your hands,
Hmm.
but you're also not supposed to talk like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that is stupid.
Yeah.
So these are things that need to be taught. Public speaking is a subject that needs to be taught. And there are two things that Logophilia teaches. One is vocabulary, and the other is public speaking. These are both aspects of language
Yeah.
that are just not being taught. And we believe that both of these, school believes that vocabulary, when I went to my first ever school principal, this is way back in 2009, when I went for my first school, saying, would you take up my work? I have this lovely concept. This was my own school principal. I was the head boy of that school when I was studying there. The same school principal,
Okay.
he said, what you're teaching is advanced linguistics. It doesn't have a market. Nobody's going to buy it. I now have
Hmm.
67 schools, by the way, advanced linguistics. But the point is that schools think that vocabulary is for those who want to read novels. Schools think that
Hmm.
public speaking is for those who want to become elite public speakers. These are both things for the common man. These are
Yeah.
not elite things, these are de-eliting things. And that's what I want to do. That's my mission in life. I want to empower every single person to understand and enjoy school, because I think schools are beautiful places.
Yeah.
And so is
True. Very true.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, what I could understood, like out of it, like your vocabulary and the way you speak is creating your way of life. Also, the choice, the kind of words you use, also creates the personality that you become. Wonderful
Yeah.
concept and an amazing mission that you are on, sir. Many congratulations to the work that you are doing.
Thank you, Manisha.
So, I would love to ask you another question, which is, what long-term impact do you hope logophilia will have on the students and in the broader perspective in the education sector?
Oh yeah. So there are uh, well, there are three very big problems in education that I see.
Mm-hmm.
One of them I don't want to speak of yet because it'll take a longer time. I'm going to talk about two. So one is that kids study for exams.
Yeah.
I was raised by two English professors, and I did not even realize when my vocabulary started to empower me. I used to find myself feeling fascinated about the things that I read. Not everything. I'm not saying that I had a
Mm-hmm.
privileged childhood,
Mm-hmm.
but had I had logophilia in my life, I would have had a privileged childhood. So I used to enjoy things whilst I was reading them as a part of my course books that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
other kids used to find to be very cumbersome, because for the other kids it was something that they were doing for the sake of avoiding blame, criticism, punishment, the taboo of
Okay.
being called a school failure. That's like a gali in school. That's something that people don't really like to do. I don't believe that studying should be done for a cheap motivation like fear. Anything that is done for fear will
Mm-hmm.
not be done when you remove the fear. That's how this goes. As the English saying goes, when the
Mm-hmm.
cat is away, the mice shall play.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not what you want to teach your children. That there's this saying
Mm-hmm.
inside um what was I saying? So yeah, I think I've lost my chain of thought. But the point is that if you go ahead and if you go ahead and you teach somebody
Mm-hmm.
that knowledge is the most empowering thing,
Yeah.
um, it becomes such a fantastic experience. I go to schools and I ask
Mm-hmm.
them, tell me the meaning of the word of the term Homo sapien.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says human. I said, no, that's just the Homo part of it. What does sapien mean? How are we different from Homo erectus? I
Mm-hmm.
have never gone to a school in any of my schools
Mm-hmm.
where the kids were able to tell me what the meaning of a Homo sapien is. Uh, it's that simple. It is
Mm-hmm.
that missing. These people are not studying
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of enjoyment, for the sake of development. The word sapien, by the way, is Latin. It means wise. A Homo erectus was only marked for one quality, which was that the spine was erect as opposed to being bent over. He was standing straight. So Homo
Mm-hmm.
erectus was upright human being. Homo sapien is wise human being. Why? Because our frontal lobes are very developed.
Mm-hmm.
What is
Okay.
the wisdom in studying if you only
Mm-hmm.
study for the fear of exams? That's not a very wise person, because then these people start to associate working with drudgery. They start thinking working is a cumbersome thing that we only do. Whenever you walk into a school, you'll. I'm sorry, I'm giving you the long answer, by the way, but
No
I promise
problem.
that this is going to make sense. So when you walk into a school, you'll see two kinds of kids. There are kids
Mm-hmm.
who like to be in school, and there are kids who look forward to getting out of school.
Yeah. True.
There are kids who like to study, and there are kids who like chutti.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think happens when these people grow up?
Hmm.
There are adults who like to work, and
Hmm.
there are adults who like chutti. There are
Okay.
people whose life starts on Friday when they go outside to the market because I have a weekend coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sadness begins in school. And why does that happen? Because there are
Hmm.
people who tell children that you're
Hmm.
supposed to study because of the fear of exams. That in psychology is called an external locus of control. Somebody whose
Okay.
control is outside their mind, which means that if you work because your boss is looking at you and otherwise you're not going to work,
Hmm.
a very sad person.
Hmm.
So coming
True.
back to that saying, the when the cat is away, the mice will play. The
Yeah.
cat is the boss and the mice are those employees. who look forward to chutti.
Yeah. True.
So that is what I do, Manisha. That's why I like to empower kids to understand the chemistry is not difficult. The biology is basically Greek and Latin terms, and Greek and Latin is the most common part, most commonsensical part of English. If you can understand that,
Hmm.
you can understand anything. So you asked about the long-term vision. I want to be able to do 100 schools at the soonest possible. I'm at 72 right now. I want to do 100, I'm sorry, 100 countries as soon as possible so that I can do a white paper at the end of 100 countries and take it to as many governments as possible saying, why in the world would you not make vocabulary a subject? That's my long
Hmm.
term. I want to make vocabulary a subject. Number two, I'm very aghast by the fact that geography is taught in schools, but psychology is not taught in schools. What are you going
Yeah.
to do with understanding what an oxbow lake looks like if you don't even know what a depressed person looks like? I know so many people after COVID had so much, psychiatrists and psychologists said that after COVID,
Hmm.
a lot of people were suffering from a PTSD-like condition. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that
Hmm.
after having been trapped in their homes for 3 years, a lot of people were feeling stifled.
Hmm.
There were wives that were complaining that their husbands have stopped going to work. There were children who were saying that my mother only sits and watches TV these days and doesn't talk very much. And I'm
Hmm.
like, why don't you understand that this is a cry for help? Why don't you understand that this is actually depression?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the human condition is going down and is under a lot of stress
Hmm.
because the population is so high that there's
Hmm.
a lot of pressure on our resources.
Hmm.
When there is so much pressure on our resources, be it land, be it time, be it attention, be it money, be it jobs, be it college admission seats, be it the amount of fresh water that is available to humanity, there is a
Yeah.
lot of being something so simple as parking spaces. My
Yeah. Yeah.
grandfather never had to worry about parking spaces. My father never had to worry about parking spaces. I have to worry about parking spaces.
Yes.
So there is
True.
a lot of pressure
Yeah.
on resources. Pressure leads to stress. Stress leads to mental health going down. Mental health going down need can only be understood by people who study psychology, and psychology is not a subject in school. Why? I have
Hmm.
had children who've come to me in the public speaking program complaining that one of their parents is an alcoholic and breaks
Mm-hmm.
glass in every day.
Hmm.
That's ridiculous. Alcoholism is not a life choice, it's a disease. It's a life choice on day one, day two, day three, day four. As soon as you get addicted, now you're in control of a substance.
Yeah. True.
So, the long term of logophilia is that there are at least two
Hmm.
subjects that I want to add. If geography wants to stay on the list, that's fine. But I really want vocabulary to become a subject. I really want public speaking to become a subject. And if I had my way, I would also add a third subject, which is called problem solving. I very, very firmly believe that the quality of your life,
Hmm.
um, if you talk to Jagjit, she'll tell you about this one. The quality of your life, anybody who's come to public speaking will be able to say this. The quality of your life is determined by the person who solves your problems.
Hmm.
I'm going to
Okay.
say that again for the sake of the audience. The quality of our life is determined by the person who solves your problems.
Hmm.
And therefore, if problem solving is not a thing that is mastered by every individual, they're going to make bad choices. People used to feel
Hmm.
insecure about women going out of the house. So what was the solution of the problem? Let them not
Hmm.
go to school. That was a bad
Hmm.
solution.
Yeah.
People used to feel very afraid that their children would abandon
Hmm.
them and nobody would be left in the farm. So that they used to say lots of children should be produced and they should
Mm-hmm.
be put towards agriculture. These are
True.
bad solutions.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
people who went ahead and did things in India, for example, like things like Sati and Jauhar.
Yeah.
In France, we all know what happened to Joan of Arc, and witch hunting is not something that is just exclusive to France. It's happened all over the world. These are
Mm-hmm.
really bad solutions to
Hmm.
common everyday problems. So I
Hmm.
believe that there are at least three subjects, Manisha, that must be
Hmm.
added to the curriculums across the world:
Hmm.
vocabulary, so that people can read whatever they want to, psychology so that people know the art of persuading people about their views, and problem solving so that they can solve problems very, very elegantly and understand the difference between solution 1 and solution 6 so that they can see
Yeah.
that every problem has multiple solutions
Yeah.
and each one is better than the other. I should
Mm.
have warned you that my answers are always long. I'm sorry about that.
Mm. So they're so informative and so much value creating. So thank you so much for sharing this, sir. So I would love to ask from you. So you're such an inspiring personality. We have talked a lot about your vision, your mission, your passion, a lot of things you're doing. It's not only about vocabulary. It's about creating a whole personality and helping to build a better nation, like through students and educators. So I just want to ask from you that what keeps you motivated and inspired towards your work for logophilia? I know that it's your passion, it's your mission, but I would love to know more about it.
What keeps me motivated? There are loads of things. So keeping it very, very short, I think the simplest answer that I can give is that when you know that you've created the best possible job that you could have had,
Hmm.
it keeps you up at night. It's something that you don't want to take for granted. So Manisha, I firmly believe that there are various identities that human beings have. There are some
Hmm.
people who are a child to someone. That's one of the many identities that we have is that we're a child to someone. There are some people who are part of a country. There are some people who are part of an occupation. Somebody says I'm a lawyer. Somebody says I'm a cricketer. Somebody says I'm a
Yeah.
teacher. Um,
Hmm.
there are some people who are just consumers. They're very, very careful about what they buy and how much they're paying. So they're very careful about that.
Hmm.
There are some people who are students. They're very careful about the fact that they can read whatever they want to. They pay a lot of attention to reading and so following. Um, I cannot stress this enough, but
Hmm.
I very firmly believe that the greatest wealth that a human being can have
Hmm.
is not health, because health can be taken away from you.
Hmm. Hmm.
The greatest wealth that a human being can have is not family, because families can be taken away from you.
Hmm. Hmm.
The greatest wealth that a human being can have is your identity.
Hmm.
If you take Logophilia away from you, I'll build it up again. I know how to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you take my health away from me, I'm not so much in control because that is dependent on other factors. If you take my family away from me, I have no claim. I can't do anything about it. If you take Logophilia away from me, I'll build it up again
Okay.
because I know how to do it. It's the only thing in my life that I can control. And
Hmm.
therefore, once you start understanding that an identity is the greatest wealth, you
Hmm.
can intertwine it with the concept of legacy. So I want to leave behind a legacy, Manisha. I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered not as a person who was born in what in Indian terms is called Kali Yuga and did nothing
Hmm.
about it. I want to be remembered as the person who made schools easy for everybody who went to school after me. And that is not an easy thing to do, because when you're running I hope I'm not sounding vain or grandiose here, when you're running a revolution,
Hmm.
very, very, very few people are actually privileged enough to be able to see the results of their revolution. I have a lot of respect for a man called Jimmy Wales. Jimmy Wales was the founder of Wikipedia. He
Hmm.
took upon the charge of running the boring mission of setting up an encyclopedia online and making it popular.
Hmm.
Wikipedia is today one of the top five most visited websites in the world. He's
Yeah.
done the impossible. That is not something that everybody gets to see. One of the topmost feminists in the world was Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir could not see the feminism that exists in the world today. She died decades ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know whether I'll be able to see the day when vocabulary has officially become a CBSE subject. I don't know if that's going to be possible. And
Hmm.
therefore I give myself very little time to do this. There's very little time to waste. I am
Hmm.
passionate about getting there, and that's probably what my motivation is. Plus, did I tell you that I love doing it? So, if there's any day when I'm not feeling happy, just put me
Hmm.
inside a classroom. I don't need anything else after that.
Yeah. Great, great, awesome. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your motivation and the place where you get inspiration from. I think it's going to help a lot of people take motivation from your words. So thank you so much. So now I'm just loving the conversation. I'm learning a lot, but time is a constraint. So I would love to wrap the conversation with the last question, which
Hmm.
is what advice would you give to the aspiring educators and entrepreneurs looking to innovate in the field of education as you are doing? Like, you have brought completely a new perspective of vocabulary and public speaking, and clubbed with the psychology and a lot of things all together. So a kind of innovation you have created in the field of education. So what kind of advice would you give to the students, educators, and people who want to try something new?
Okay. So right before I give that advice, I wanted to just very quickly add something to the other part. So all
Okay.
days are not the same, like all
Mm-hmm.
fingers are not the same. So all
Yeah.
days are not the same, and therefore there are hard days and there are easy days. And
Yeah.
therefore, one of the things that keeps me in control is that I practice Hatha Yoga.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
I make sure that every single day, if nothing else happens, I
Hmm.
make sure that I
Hmm.
devote time exclusively for doing
Hmm.
my rituals. I have a large set of rituals. The topmost ritual that I do is walking.
Okay.
So I would walk anywhere between 4 to 5 kilometers every single day. And I've
Hmm.
now been doing that for 2,256 days, which is a little over 5 years. And I don't miss that, even if it's rain, even if I'm not well.
Hmm.
So these days, for example, there's a massive heat wave that's going through India, and there are lots of people who are just saying stay indoors. So I said, okay, I'm not going to be disobedient. So now I walk inside my room, and I still find that I'm able to do 5 kilometers inside a single room because I don't do it for entertainment. I do it because it keeps me in control. So what does that do? It gives me a lot of strength
Hmm.
for the difficult
Hmm.
days. There
Hmm.
will be difficult days in life, and those really help. If you don't look for comfort, if you look for training and discipline, it really works.
Hmm.
But coming down to the question that you really asked me, so now you've asked me for three different people. So which one do you want to do? I have different advice for teachers, for
Okay.
entrepreneurs. Which one do you want me to do? Teachers or
So,
entrepreneurs?
teachers.
Okay. So number one, don't become a teacher
Okay.
if you
Okay.
don't like children, and if you
Hmm.
don't like influencing people, if you
Okay.
don't, if you have an ego, don't become a teacher. If you don't know how to sell and persuade an idea, don't become a teacher. If you
Okay.
become a teacher because you could not do anything else in the world, don't become a teacher. You
Hmm.
are going to be the shaper of the future.
Yeah.
I had beautiful teachers. I had 23 teachers across 12 years of school, and I used to practically worship 21 of them. I only had two bad teachers. I know their names. I can tell you their names, by the way. But the point is, a teacher is supposed to be the model that children look up to. My
Okay.
teachers did not even make pronunciation errors, and I did not go to a very fancy school, by the way. I was
Hmm.
just blessed enough
Hmm.
to find people who wanted to teach, and therefore they were teachers. I see a lot
Okay.
of people these days who I'm going to talk with the Indian example. So the Indian civil services are called the IAS exams. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people who could not become IAS officers, so they also put in PhD application and then started to become university teachers because they did that. That's not how this should be done.
Okay.
I know a lot of people who could not do clear a government job exam, so they took up a B.Ed position and they became a school teacher. There are children looking up to you. Please don't do that.
Okay.
I
Okay.
recently visited a doctor.
Hmm.
And I was stunned by this person. I mostly don't find people like that. This is one of the most expensive doctors in my city.
Okay.
They would the charge of this person was about 1,000 rupees a session.
Hmm.
And most of these expensive doctors, they would just probably not even look at you. There would be an assistant who would take down notes, and this is the stuff, and you maybe FaceTime with this person for 2 minutes. This person sat with me for 30 minutes, looked
Hmm.
over 2 years of my medical records, and then came up with their diagnosis. That was so impressive for me. As soon as I got out of the clinic, I told my father, here is a person who was supposed to be a doctor.
Okay.
The right person for the right job is extremely required. Don't become a doctor if you don't want to, if you don't have the nursing temperament. Don't become a teacher if you don't like to communicate. Don't become a gardener if you don't like plants. So I'm
Got it.
very startled by the entire notion that when India recruits university professors,
Mm-hmm.
there is an examination that these people have to go through, which is called NET,
Net. Yeah.
National Eligibility Test.
Test. Yeah.
In national eligibility test, they will ask general knowledge questions. They're going
Hmm.
to ask logic, and they're going to ask English errors, and they're going to ask subject related questions.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what is one thing that they never ask?
Hmm.
Public speaking ability.
Hmm.
India does not differentiate between researchers and professors. The word professors itself comes from fess. Fess means to talk, profess meaning to talk forward. A person who can profess their knowledge to students is going to be an ambassador of their subject to students. That's called professing. If you go to France and every teacher is called a professor, they don't use the term teacher. Every teacher is a professor. Over there, professor is not a rank, it is
Hmm.
an occupation.
Hmm.
Here, a
Okay.
lab researcher is confused for a teacher, very shy, very dull people who don't know how to interact, who don't know how to advocate their subject. A
Mm-hmm.
great school is one in which various kinds of subject teachers compete with each other for whose subject becomes more popular. That is a fantastic learning environment. So I think that's one advice that I have for teachers.
Hmm.
If you wanted me to give advice for entrepreneurs, I'll keep it very short. It's the hardest thing that you can do.
Okay.
Do it only if you have passion and discipline. There is nothing more stressful than running a startup and watching it grow. It's going to take everything that you have. Don't do it
Hmm.
unless you're mad about it. I'm mad about logophilia, and sometimes I'm just
Hmm.
mad. But yeah, so I love what I do. You can't keep me away from logophilia unless you kill me or something. So I don't like chutti. I like what I do. So don't become an entrepreneur if you're not obsessed with making a difference. Entrepreneurs are very different from business people. A business owner is like a person who maybe runs a fueling station. There is
Hmm.
no romance in running a fueling station. Money comes, money goes.
Hmm. Hmm.
An entrepreneur is a person who enters a preneur and makes a difference. An entrepreneur is
Okay.
a person who goes into an industry and disrupts it and tells you how to do it.
Great.
So there used to be people who used to ride bicycles. There used to be people who used to ride inside horse-drawn carriages, and then the automobile innovation happened, and then people started fuel cars. That's an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Disrupts, and that takes a lot. If you ever look at any of the great entrepreneurs, be it this
Hmm.
man right here, Steve Jobs,
Hmm.
or be it Jeff Bezos, or be it Thomas Alva Edison.
Hmm.
These are all very passionate people, and these are people they will always have a split audience in their employees. They will have employees who will love them, and they will have employees who will hate them.
Hmm.
Because these people, great entrepreneurs, tend to be very unreasonable because they're in a hurry. They understand that Simone de Beauvoir could not see the advent of feminism in front of her eyes.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they're always in a hurry. You want to get there and you're
Yeah.
willing to put in everything for it. So yeah, it's a tough journey, and don't do it for the money. We are not very wealthy people. We're wealthy
Hmm.
because we have an identity. The money doesn't
Hmm.
really matter at the end of the day.
Hmm. Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this. I think it's going to be a huge, huge motivation for a lot of people. And I really love the fact that you very well expressed that if your heart lies in something, then only go for the particular thing. Otherwise, don't do it for the sake of doing it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. So, thank you so much for your presence on my show today. I really loved and learned a lot of things from you. I'm very sure that the people who are going to watch this podcast are going to take beautiful, incredible insights from the conversation that we had today. So, thank you very much. And I would love to tell our audiences that I'm going to share the links of Logophilia and sir's social media platforms, so you can anytime reach out to him, join his courses, and elevate your life standards. So many congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for joining in. Do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you for having me.